Hi guys, welcome back. So recently I've been talking about the June Test Series. The top 10 in the world are going up against each other. I've had some specific chats with Zach from Hacker Time Rugby about Ireland going to New Zealand and Don from Unbiased Rugby about Wales going to South Africa. I'm going to talk about world rankings now. I've been geeking out, playing around with the world rankings, trying to work out what could happen after these summer tours, who might leapfrog who, and will we get a new number one? Now, I don't want to go into how the world rankings work particularly because I've done a big video on that, actually analysing the algorithm itself to explain exactly how it works. Now, whether you like the world ranking system or not, do have a look at that video just so you understand how it works, and this video might make a bit more sense as well. So I'll link that video up above there. So let's have a look at the rankings as it stands right now. Now, ever since South Africa won the World Cup in 2019, they have stayed the world number ones. So they're clear by, a point and a bit. Then we've got a close bunch there, second, third and fourth of France, New Zealand and Ireland, all pretty close on 88 point something. Then we have a gap to England and Australia, then another gap to Scotland, Argentina, Wales and Japan. And what's great in this June series is everyone's playing everyone. We get to see them up close and personal and compare against each other. So what I've got to do firstly to get this process going is to predict the series. Now, of course, this is just having a bit of fun, really. I'm having a guess whether this will happen or not. I don't know, it's my opinion, so please put yours below if it differs. Don't freak out too much if my opinion differs to yours, but this is one of the most likely scenarios I see in my head. I'm going to go through two complete scenarios, plus a couple of other interesting things in and around. So, New Zealand going to Ireland. Like I discussed at length with Zach, I think New Zealand will probably take it, but 2-1 to New Zealand is my most likely outcome. Australia, England. I think if England get it together, they might just have a bit too much for Australia. They've had a great record against them under Eddie Jones. So 1 to Australia, 2 to England. South Africa, Wales. Even if Wales play pretty well, I see the world champions, the world number ones, just being that bit too strong. So I think 3-0 to South Africa. Japan versus France. I don't know what sort of squad France are going to take over, but even a second string squad, I think if they take it full on, they should win 2-0 to France. And then finally, Argentina, Scotland. I think if Scotland get it together, I think they might be slightly too strong for Argentina, even though Argentina are at home, so I'm going for a 2-1 to Scotland. Now, I could go into detail and predict the exact scores for each game, but just looking at averages of winning margins in games, I think 5 points is a fair arbitrary amount. I have plucked it out of the air in some way, so feel free to disagree with that. But I'm going for either 5-0 to one side or 0-5 to the other side as the winning margin. It doesn't matter the total score. It's the margin that matters for the world rankings. But I'm going for a standard 5-point winning margin, so I hope that's okay. That's what I've done. So let's have a look. I plugged all those series results into the algorithm, and this is what we get. South Africa don't gain even a point, even for a 3-0 whitewash, which is a pretty harsh. They're beating Wales 3 times, but because Wales are down in 9th, it just doesn't make a difference to the ranking, and I increased the points margin just to see what would happen, and nothing there either. So really, it's kind of a hiding to nothing for South Africa rankings wise. If Wales win matches, that really does change things. I'll come to that later. But France in this scenario gain points, but it's not enough to take first place. Now, for your information, if France had a 3-match series against someone like, say, Australia, did really well, maybe got a 3-0 win, that could have taken them to first with some good scores, etc. But touring Japan with 2 matches didn't really give them a chance, but they do bump up to second in this scenario. Now, one of the interesting things is if Ireland lose the series but win 1 game, that's enough for them to leapfrog New Zealand into third. So that seems really harsh that New Zealand win a series, but they actually lose world ranking placings because of it. So that's quite interesting. So a 1 win to Ireland could make a huge difference to the rankings. England, well, they would gain the most points in this scenario out of all the top 10 teams, but they're so far behind 4th, they wouldn't even be close to moving up, but they would gain points. In this scenario, Scotland get very close to leapfrogging Australia into 6th, and indeed if Scotland win 2-1 and England say win 3-0, the swap happens, or another scenario, Scotland winning 3-0, England winning 2-1, they do make the leap. So a little bit there on the line for Scotland, and everyone else stays the same. So then I tweaked it just a little bit more extreme, something I think that is possible but a bit less likely, purely in my opinion. I'd love to see your scenarios. Let's say Ireland get the big upset and they beat New Zealand at home 2-1. Australia, really fired up by home advantage, beat England, say 2-1. South Africa, Wales, even if Wales play well, I think it's going to be a big ask for them to win a game, so I'm keeping that one 3-0 South Africa. Same with Japan, 2-0 to France. But Argentina at home, I think, could absolutely win if they play well, so I'll go 2-1 to Argentina against Scotland in that one. So what does that do to the rankings? So a 2-1 series for Ireland would catapult them from 4th into 2nd, so a big jump for them. Not quite enough to take number 1 in this scenario. France drop a place even though they win the series against Japan 2-0. So that's the danger of playing those lower ranked teams, if you like. New Zealand go from 3rd down to 4th after losing the series. That kind of makes sense, I guess. Australia and England swap places, and Argentina and Scotland swap places. Now, a couple of other interesting things happened when I played around with the algorithm. Even one win for Wales against South Africa is a huge boost in ranking points. They get approximately 2 ranking points for one win. So if they won even more games, they would go flying up that leaderboard. So that could be quite interesting. And there could indeed be a new number 1. Going back to the thumbnail title, what it would need to be is at least 2 wins and a draw for Ireland. So they'd have to win the series, but not just 2-1, it would have to be 2 wins and a draw. And the other scenario is a 3-0 win to Ireland. Now, is anyone putting money on that? I don't know, but if Ireland get 2 wins and a draw, that would catapult them to the new number 1, but it seems a big ask. I think those other 2 scenarios are more likely. Now, I found that quite fun and quite interesting. If you did, feel free to like the video, subscribe, all those sorts of things. Drop a comment below. If you feel kind enough to put a super thanks, I'll definitely answer your comment in detail. And if you want to play around with the algorithm yourself, put in your scenarios. I'd love to know how it would affect the rankings. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed that, and I'll catch you next time.